We are back with more NFL coverage, and to be honest, there's a lot of very terrible news going around, to say the least. So, honestly, rather than just get to all the individual things, it makes more sense to just cover those things first, because they are very pressing, especially the situation coming out of Manhattan over the past few days, as late on Monday night, an individual carrying around an AR-15 rifle would enter the building on 345 Park Avenue in Midtown Manhattan. And let's just say that building holds a lot of very important operations in there. Obviously, NFL headquarters is there, as well as a few other things in there. But essentially, late Monday night, person broke in there carrying around an AR-15 rifle and would go on to kill 4 people in that establishment before. Originally, what they reported was that he ended up accidentally getting a bullet in his body or something like that, but it would later on be ruled as him taking his own life. Nevertheless, that would happen late on Monday night, and as news continued to break, names would be revealed to the public, and the situation would just truly shock some people. Definitely put a very terrible cloud over the course of the NFL right now, even with all of the other stuff going on. So the suspect in question was a 27-year-old Nevada man by the name of Shane Tamara. And according to this source here, quote, he said in TV interviews that a note on his body, referenced chronic traumatic encephalopathy, a disease linked to head trauma, and that Tamara incorrectly believed he was a former player in the NFL, which has offices in the building, end quote. Multiple reports also stated that on the course of this pursuit to get into NFL headquarters, infiltrate the establishment and try to send this kind of message to the NFL, even though he didn't play there, he also took the wrong route to get there. And I don't even believe that he entered the NFL portion of the area. He might have invaded a completely different space. And obviously, this is a situation where no matter how you think about it, any loss of life in this situation is terrible whatsoever. And no one, no matter if they were working for the NFL or some of the other offices in there, you weren't expecting this at all. You're just trying to go in there, do what you do for your specific job, and just go about your day. You're not expecting anybody openly carrying around an AR-15 rifle with the intent to take a life or lives, plural. So it's just an all-around unfortunate situation. And a few of the victims' names would be released over the course of the day. One was Alon Etienne, and I believe, as this report states right here, he was a security guard. As I read, he was a person sitting at basically the front desk of the building, and he was the very first victim of the situation. Terribly unfortunate, and his family is certainly mourning this right now. They would have his brother speak to the media about it, and it's just heartbreaking generally. Another victim was Darul Islam, an officer of the 47th Precinct of the New York Police Department. And multiple close friends of his, family members of his, came to speak out about it. They held a vigil for him and had an envoy with him in the ambulance being observed by fellow first responders and other individuals that were, close to him in his life. And then another victim here was, let me get down and see, Wesley LePatner, an employee from Blackstone, another company who has some form of operations. I don't know if they have headquarters in the building, but in some capacity, they occupy that space as well. There are multiple organizations within that building. So again, for this person to be caught in this situation, and you're not even necessarily the target, as Tamara made clear in what would eventually be detailed as his suicide note. It's just a terrible situation. Now there's a fourth victim, and I don't believe that person's name has been identified yet. But nonetheless, to all the families of the victims of this situation, man, this is just not something they're going to be able to forget. It's going to sit with them for quite some time. And you just hope, if you're viewing this situation from afar, that they can get through it. Because honestly, with some of these people, like Islam, as I was reading, like an entire community, because he was of Bangladeshi descent, there was an entire community around there, and they rallied around that man. And just like that, in a moment's notice, his life was taken away from him. For apparently little reason whatsoever. Even if Tamara cites CTE is, something he might have been dealing with, and he also made multiple mentions of saying he was sorry and stuff like that within the note. Just going in there and taking lives like that is certainly not okay. But at the same time, with you consistently talking about the NFL in this note, and also citing CTE as something you were potentially dealing with, there's an even larger problem here. Because the reality is that the NFL has been dealing with different crimes relating around individuals suffering from CTE for years. And normally it deals with former NFL players. The article mentioned Phillip Adams in 2021 going on to kill 7 people. And after he passed away, he was found to have CTE. Situations like that. Even when hearing about it more dealing with former NFL players, though, it can certainly affect the younger generation of football players. As it states in this article right here, there's a director of the CTE Center at Boston University, Ann McKee, and essentially the quote here kind of gives backstory into her credentials. As it states, quote, McKee is among the world's leading CTE researchers and co-wrote a 2023 study that found 41% of former amateur athletes who were 30 or younger at the time of death had evidence of CTE, end quote. So Tamara could very well be one of these players because, for one, he had experience in high school at Nevada, but never made it to the NFL level. Let's be completely honest, I would have had some idea of him being in the league if he truly was. He definitely wasn't. That's been refuted at multiple points already. So if there are people who believe that for some reason, it's certainly not true. And again, the thing about CTE, if people, watching this don't know how exactly you figure that out, the only way for you to be diagnosed with some form of CTE rather, is when you are dead. It's as simple as that. They will not be able to, all they can do while you're alive is maybe allude to potential symptoms of it that you might have. But there is no way to definitively guarantee that someone has it until they are no longer on this earth. And their brain can be truly examined and studied. to then figure out whether or not they have it. The autopsy, I don't even think it's taken place yet. So they'll be able to figure it out then. And that's also going to have to, see, I guess, his brain potentially, not to gross anybody out. It's going to need inspection. So you can speculate the many ways that they would have to be able to make that happen. I'm not going to do that here because, that is extremely gross to get into. I'm not a medical channel here. You got to go elsewhere for that. But that is the process that they're going to have to go through. If he truly has it or not, we don't know at the moment. We can only find out when the autopsy is fully released and completed. And even then, are those public details that should be released? In this case, yes. You have a note that's strongly alluding to him having it. So you got to do your due diligence here. You can't play around. Even then, throughout this article, which honestly, credit to them because it consisted of a lot of live updates over the course of the last few days over the course of what was a 21-minute read, this article from the Washington Post. So credit to them. But they cited that he had a long mental health history, so there could be a component to that as well. Especially when you consider how he even got there in the first place. Because, as I also read, not to get into too specific of a detail here, but let's just put it like this. When it comes to carrying around firearms in New York, they are very strict about that. And there are multiple questions surrounding whether or not he was even able to open carry in Nevada, where their laws are much looser. Still, you need a license for it or something like that. And while he did get one a few years back for private investigation work or something like that, he was not permitted to carry there. So you can do what you will with that information, seeing as he was able to get that from point A to point B. And let's just be very clear about this. If he were to fly with an AR-15 rifle, they would have immediately flagged him. So I don't know if he necessarily had that in his mind as he was making the trip. But for a number of different reasons, he decided to drive. And I think from Nevada to New York City, they stated it was around 2,500 miles from point A to point B. All without any proper, checkpoints, any proper individuals of law enforcement maybe recognizing that something suspicious was going down. And frankly, if you didn't get any reports from back there with any sheriffs or anything, why would people in other states be looking out for something like that? You'd be just going about your day at that point in their eyes. You just can never truly know. But at some point, there had to be some way to at least check the individual in question, check the car, see what was going on. And none of that happened. Once they figured out that the situation was finished, they go to inspect the car and they found magazines, they found bullets, they found guns, and they found medicine in his car. So there was a lot of illegal stuff that should have been flagged already. And again, there are questions on whether or not it was even legal in the first place for him to be carrying at all in the very state he came from. But that's just not a good sign. If you can have an individual go all the way from one state across the country to another for the intent to harm. Like, he was literally seen on camera footage just before the incident unraveled, just walking around the street in a normal manner while carrying that around. And even if his intent was to inflict harm to people in NFL HQ, what was truly stopping him from doing that elsewhere on his pathway to the building? You would have had an even greater issue there if other innocent civilians would have lost their lives during this time. Because there was literally no one checking for him. And it just, that's very weird to me. But again, nonetheless, like, it is a matter that has to be taken seriously. Roger Goodell and others have already put out statements about it. And, other NFL organizations, coaches, players have had their own varying reactions to it. It is a truly terrible moment in time. And it certainly raises questions. Maybe some that shouldn't be there. Because again, you're not even dealing with a player that is in the NFL per se. But at the same time, whether he might have been in his right state of mind or not, this happened on your ground. And definitely, even if, like, I think some NFL officials up there might have been injured indirectly, to say the least. I don't think anybody from there lost their lives. I hope not. I gotta see, because again, there's a fourth victim whose name hasn't been released to this point. But even without that being said, you're witnessing this go down, and the building luckily had a lot of safeguards in it, as Mayor Eric Adams alluded to throughout the course of this article. Multiple people were able to find spots just in the nick of time to hide and protect themselves and avoid that direct confrontation between them and Dahmer in this situation. So, whoever set those up in there, you have to give them a ton of respect as well, because that's another measure that at least was put in place on the parts of these people that prevented an even greater loss of life in what is being defined as a mass shooting, which, as the article displays here, is anything involving 4 or more people, not including the victim. So again, there are certainly a lot more questions than answers right now on both sides of the matter. And in the days that follow, hopefully more information continues to flow in. Obviously, most importantly, the autopsy, to see whether or not he truly had it. And again, I don't think that this will be a popular opinion amongst those who are covering this thing right now. Again, yes, I am not even remotely co-signing, supporting what Tamara chose to do. It's unforgivable. But at the same time, as he loses his life in this situation, and as they also have to witness hearing about him doing this to other people in New York City at the time, his family, if he has known family at all, I can't even imagine how they feel about this. Because, like, you never could envision as a parent or maybe a brother of his that his life would take this path. I mean, it might have seemed like just a few years ago he was on a much better track, even if he had mental health issues. And to know that they were so great to the point where Tamara, again, for one reason or another, might not have felt as though he could turn to his family to just be with them, be around them, and potentially resolve or hinder some of these issues. He felt an urge to carry that out across the country. So before you just completely, again, maybe to an extent it is warranted, because again, it's inexcusable to take another life when you're looking at what Tamara did. But, if you're going to do that, you got to keep that in mind. Like, especially for those who might be targeting his family in any way whatsoever. I hope nobody's doing that, and nobody's stupid enough to do that. Because in this moment, like, obviously, what Tamara did is certainly going to affect them, whether they ask for it or not. But you cannot make the mistake of mixing them in together. Tamara made this decision, even if he might not have been in the right state of mind at the time. He made this decision on his own accord. Nobody knew. Not a single soul outside of him knew what he was going to do on Monday night. So you can't cast judgment on his family for that. It's as simple as that. Gotta work backwards for a couple other very just interesting situations going on. For example, what would have originally started things off here, although again I'm covering the more serious stuff first. Josh Hines-Allen detailed that his son is currently recovering from leukemia. And keep in mind, this child is only 7 years old. Josh Hines-Allen and his family, his son in particular, had to be confronting this for months on end now. If you're coming out with this news at this stage of time, I am not sure if Josh Hines-Allen, I should say, because let me check how many games he logged last year. I don't know if he missed any time last year. If he did, it probably would be to personal reasons. And in that moment, you can't blame him for doing that. When that is something that your child is going through, you have to do whatever you can, no matter what, to be there for him. Yeah, okay, so that's pretty interesting. And you know what? You have to give respect to Josh Hines-Allen for this. Because even as this was going on, like, I have to speculate that this was happening during the height of the football season. And yet, Hines-Allen played 16 games last year. He only missed the last game of the season. And he was rendered as inactive. Now again, that could be due to personal reasons, that could be due to injury, I don't know. But for you to be dealing with that at home, with your family, and still go out there, do as best as you can to produce for the team. Like, that's honestly amazing. Like, if he's recovering from it, I can only hope that it's gone. And if it is gone, that's truly a miracle for them. You just hope that he continues to get well, and that even with them already going through the darkest stages of this thing, that, they don't have any setbacks, that he can have an effective enough recovery to get back to full health. But yeah, no, that's respect on the part of Hines-Allen. Because literally, you have, if you're on the outside looking in, you have no idea about this at all. And honestly, Josh Hines-Allen isn't really entitled to tell the public about his business right now. He's not even entitled to do it, especially during the height of football season. So you have to keep that to yourself and amongst your family. That's certainly a hard situation to confront. Again, he wasn't alone. Like, his family knew about this. Of course, his wife, potentially other kids. He has a sister in the WNBA. I'm sure she had some knowledge about this as well. So, you do all that, and you're still able to be somewhat effective on the football field while holding that in internally. It just, again, major respect to him. You have to be glad for that family right now that they are in the stage of recovery at least, and potentially beating this for good. And that wouldn't even be the last of it, because I think in news that followed this, Deion Sanders would formally return in a press conference held at Colorado, and he would detail that for months on end, he had been dealing with bladder cancer. And as of the press conference, he was cancer-free. He already got it removed. They needed a tube to do so and things like that. It was certainly a struggle, but he got it done. And with hearing that from Deion Sanders, that explained quite a lot. Because there were multiple instances over the course of the offseason where he just spent a lot of different time away from his family, away from the team. He missed spring training at Colorado while being away at a ranch in Texas or something like that. And honestly, with that news coming out, that probably tied into him missing all of this time. And again, akin to Josh Hines-Allen's situation, you're holding this all in. And for Sanders, he's literally doing this alone. Because, as he stated in the press conference, he told no one else. Nobody else. Only him and I guess a few doctors, oncologists, recognized what was happening and just decided they were going to focus on it. He didn't tell his sons, his daughters. He didn't tell anybody from his family. He was dealing with this by himself. And honestly, some of the reporters had reasonable questions about potential mortality here. And the way that Deion Sanders answered those questions kind of speaks volumes about who he is as a person. no matter how much vilification people try to place on him in the media overall, which is just crazy. A lot of it was blowing up during this time, especially during the NFL draft. And meanwhile, all that stuff you're talking about Deion Sanders is heard loud and clear while he's dealing with this. I bet you some of these people too, behind the scenes, maybe not publicly, they're trying to walk back their statements during that time about Deion Sanders, acting like they didn't say what they said. And now, because you know that at the time he was dealing with that, you want to be viewed in better grace. That's not going to happen. Like, you can't take back what you already said about him, knowing that this is the case now. And again, I don't think it's even being done publicly, but you can imagine that it's probably happening behind the scenes. And those people are certainly the worst, simply put. But again, that clearly doesn't matter to Deion Sanders. He's proven that time and again. You know, he puts his faith first and his family in high regard as well. I mean, again, you know, they kind of spoke about how commendable it was, per se, for him to not tell Shiloh or Shedeur during this time. And again, to that extent, it does make sense. I mean, to hear that your father is going through something like that while you're in the process of furthering your potential career, that would have crushed them both. And honestly, I think in that moment, there's a chance they would have both potentially dropped their dreams for the sole purpose of making sure that he was okay. Sanders took it upon himself to keep that in private and ensure that even though it took them tremendously long to get off the board, obviously Shiloh was undrafted, make sure that they could invest all of their time and energy into their NFL dreams and not worry about him. And again, to that extent, you got to respect that. But at the same time, he also stated he made a will behind the scenes as well in case something went left. And I don't think people would want to imagine what would happen in that case. But again, what matters the most is that he is in good health. He's well. And that, you know, Shiloh and Shedeur, knowing this information now, to know that they still have their father around to lean on as a guide and a parent. That is what is at the root of this thing. And it's like, geez, like what just craziness in the league entirely over just the past few days. Not to mention that with some more natural developments in the world when talking about the recent Russian earthquake that struck. Apparently, multiple cities on the West Coast entirely, and Hawaii and Alaska, are facing tsunami alerts. So if you are in those areas, you best evacuate if you need to and stay safe. Inadvertently, if you do actually see some tsunamis there, that could potentially affect how some of these training camps are currently operating right now. Obviously, the NFL is the last thing that matters when you are dealing with an earthquake / tsunami situation. And that has been proven time and time again. But the reality is that some of these are being held on the West Coast right now. And hopefully, again, those people remain safe and in good condition, and maybe this entire thing blows over with no tsunamis, or tsunami waves rather, crashing in there at all. But at the same time, it could happen. And it's something that needs to be addressed. So hopefully they are taking the right measures, if needed, to counter the situation. To move into, I guess, again, some of these are still pretty bad, dealing with injuries and things like that, but we're going to move into the lighter version of the NFL news, shall we? So to start things out, the Falcons would sign DJ Chark Jr., and he'd been looking for a team for a while. He had been a free agent for the longest time. And I mean, it does make sense. You know, he's a decent wide receiver, but he's not someone that's really all that sought after. I mean, last season, literally saw him play in 7 games, log 4 receptions and 31 yards for just a single touchdown. So it hasn't been utilized all that much. But I think as a depth piece, the Falcons are just opting to have him as a sort of specialist. I don't really see anything wrong with that. I mean, the Falcons are kind of set already at the wide receiver position with guys like Drake London and Darnell Mooney already there. So they're just continuing to fill out their roster. And it feels like a move that just kind of adds to their depth. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But as for another lightly serious situation, I should say, because it does have a bit more financial implications, over 100 league officials and players are really getting themselves in some shit because they're being penalized in a multitude of ways for allegedly, as an article from Fox Sports stated, they were purchasing more than the requisite amount of tickets they can acquire for specific people with relation to them, and selling those tickets to them far above the market value at which they acquired them from other personnel or from a site. Again, when you are trying to fuck around with the money like that, you cannot do it. But legitimately, in any case, selling that stuff far above the market value is literally false advertising. And just terrible for a marketing idea. It's definitely illegal. You can't do that in any case. And you thought that you would get away with that within a league that literally generates the highest revenue on an annual basis. You really thought you were going to get away with that? Because they did it for the Super Bowl 59 game. Essentially how it works is that, I guess, for every single player in an organization, you can purchase like 2 tickets, and that's it. And again, some people were doing more than that, which is illegal. Some people were trying to generate more money for themselves by selling it above market value. And again, I don't know why you feel the need to do that whatsoever. It's completely stupid. And to really think that there were a massive number of players who tried this, it's crazy. And also just flat out wrong. Like, obviously the NFL has their own ways of getting certain people opportunities to be at the Super Bowl in person. They have multiple methods of giving different people, different fans, tickets and things like that. But at the same time, I'm sure that in the general sense, somebody who didn't have any sort of connection with the NFL or anything, maybe just wanted to see what was going on in the Super Bowl, and you robbed them of that opportunity to be at the game by trying to hike up the prices like that and get more people that you personally knew in those seats. Just because. And it involved a number of different teams all around, not just Eagles or Chiefs fans or things like that. But the penalty is going to see them, the players at least, pay more than 1 times the value of those tickets back to the league. They're also going to enforce harsher penalties against officials who participated in that, and deservedly so, because it is fucked up when you think about it. I may as well tie both of these in together since they're both relevant, because while the Bengals would resolve things with Shemar Stewart, Trey Hendrickson's contract is still up in the air at this point. Now, for Shemar Stewart, he would get a fully guaranteed deal with all of the proper language in there, I would assume at this point. I'd hope that you wouldn't reach a conclusion, a resolution to this thing and still try to sneak some craziness in that deal. But at the very least, he's getting all of the money that he's entitled to at this point. And he's back in training camp right now. So hopefully, he has a lot of potential, as stated when he got drafted. He's clearly got the upside, but it's just about putting it all together on the field because he is a raw talent. So hopefully he can actually focus on the football and the proper conditioning to get ready for the NFL season. As for Trey Hendrickson, a player who is more than there at this point as the NFL sack leader over the past couple of seasons, he would actually end the holdout process today, as he is in Bengals training camp right now. However, he's still not going to be doing on-the-field activities, and he still does not have a resolution to the contract yet. The key to holding in is this, however, because Terry McLaurin is doing the same thing. When you are holding out and you are away from the team, you're going to be fined at least $50,000 per day every day you're away from the squad. By holding in, you can try to get closer to a deal without losing out on any money whatsoever. I'm sure that some combination of the two is leading to Trey Hendrickson being back there. And also, again, given how he does operate, I'm sure he genuinely wants to be back with the team. But Mike Brown and that front office better stop hardballing the man. You should very much be giving him what he's worth. He's the only current defensive player on that team right now worth anything. And you'd much rather retain his services than lose him for absolutely nothing. So, again, pipe down and pay the man, straight up. The Dolphins are going through some shit right now. And I honestly, again, may as well tie all of that in together because it is literally connected. Like earlier in the week, the Dolphins would sign cornerbacks Jack Jones and Mike Hilton. Now, honestly, at this point, you can view Jack Jones as more of a reject, but when he does get playing time, he's honestly a solid cornerback. He's still young, and honestly, there's a lot of work needed on his end to truly be productive in this league. But let's face it, to get him for cheap is what you have to do if you are the Dolphins right now, because you don't have anybody. You don't have anybody at the cornerback position whatsoever. You need bodies on that field at that position. And maybe it would have helped them to draft somebody, some quality cornerback early in the draft to solve this issue. Because they knew this was going to be a problem, especially with Jalen Ramsey being a part of a potential trade and then eventually becoming a part of a trade to get sent to the Steelers earlier in the month. They knew this was coming. But to get more veteran experience, they would also get Mike Hilton. Now, he's been established in the league for quite some time as a solid cornerback, especially as a blitzer. However, in the past few seasons, he's definitely seen some regression, and of course, being a part of a defense that was as bad as the 2024 Bengals defense was last year certainly doesn't help his case. But he's still a respectable enough corner, and honestly, as young as a lot of these corners are on that roster right now, even if they're not very good yet, at the very least, having a veteran presence in that core like Mike Hilton should be able to alleviate some things. I mean, he's still been productive. He had an interception with 5 pass deflections last year to go along with 73 combined tackles and 12 TFLs. Again, hell of a fucking blitzer as a corner. So, if you are in positions, and honestly, you can bank on the Dolphins being in this situation a lot where you're not going to be able to stop a lick, you may as well sell out for the pass rush. And Mike Hilton can do that for you. But by sending Mike Hilton on occasion, you're going to be even weaker in terms of pass coverage. And it's already going to be bad because, again, they're going to get torched down there. Again, they're a pair of solid moves, but at the same time, for what they could have accomplished in this offseason, and could have still had if they managed to retain Jalen Ramsey, it's a huge step down overall, even with those two being there. And to make matters even worse, earlier today, it would be stated that their only returning starting cornerback from last season in Kader Kohou is now going to miss the entire rest of the regular season with a knee injury. So all 5 of your starters at the cornerback position who were there last year are either no longer with the team, are a free agent, or are injured and out for the rest of the year. That's a terrible situation to go through if you are the Dolphins. So it is just, expect their defense to be underwhelming this season. I just can't envision them being able to cover anything. Hopefully their pass rush can stay healthy because Jalen Phillips has obviously dealt with a lot of injury as well. And he'll be coming back for the chance to put together a fully healthy season. They're going to need an aggressive and truly efficient pass rushing attack because if they don't get it, it's open season for those corners back there. Just to put it simply, like they're not going to have fun over there. Another person who's going to have a lot of fun retaining his services in Minnesota and also potentially having more of an opportunity to play is none other than Josh Metellus. Like I've stated at multiple occasions, the 27-year-old safety is one of the more versatile ones the league has to offer in this current day. Even with him being listed as a safety, he's played pretty much all over the field. He's played in the slot, he's played in the nickel, he's played weak side linebacker, he's played the will on multiple occasions for that Minnesota defense, and he's held it down at almost every position. Last season, he had 2 interceptions, career high for him, to go along with 5 pass deflections, 103 total tackles, and 2 TFLs, along with 6 quarterback hits as well. Even with him never being a Pro Bowler, he's been nothing short of a solid safety in the league, and the Vikings will reward him with a 3-year, $36 million contract extension. Truly well-deserved. He might not be regarded as a top-tier safety, but it does put him right in that ballpark of very great contributors to their team. And to have someone as young as he is right now, with Harrison Smith potentially being gone next season, and with Cameron Bynum also taking his talents to Indianapolis, in ways Metellus could emerge this season as the leader of that defense. And in ways he already has been. So for him to get even more opportunities under this core, yeah, that could actually be a scary sign. Like, he's going to just be entering his prime this season. So, it's going to be interesting to see what he's able to do on that front. As for more injuries, because, yeah, they're that common, a pair of running backs would find at least a part of their season in danger. To start out with Joe Mixon, he is potentially going to miss the start of the season. Now, how true that is hasn't necessarily been confirmed, but with a setback to an injury he had last season, he's going to have to take the proper time to recover from that. And luckily for the Texans, they were able to get Nick Chubb in free agency. So, I mean, to have him take the mantle as he's been accustomed to doing in Cleveland anyways, for at least the first few weeks of the season, you know, that's not a terrible position to be in. The Seahawks, though, this one is certainly going to hurt. I mean, you still have solid running backs in Kenneth Walker III and Zach Charbonnet, while they also drafted Damian Martinez from Florida in a later round this year. But to have Kenny McIntosh be diagnosed with a torn ACL and miss the entire regular season with that injury is just crushing. You know, he flourished in the few snaps that he got last year, but this season probably could have seen a much greater opportunity for him to put something together, given that the offensive coordinator there in Clint Kubiak is more of a run-first mind. He, as a gadget player, was probably going to excel in that offense, and yet he doesn't even get an opportunity to show it because of that injury. So you wish him nothing but the best. Hope that he has a speedy in full recovery throughout this entire situation. And hey, you know, the Seahawks are certainly going to handle business for him. You can bank that. Minkah Fitzpatrick, with all of these different moves going down, would restructure his contract, and I think he's going to get a little bit of a higher signing bonus or something like that. Now, again, what exactly they're going to do with that move, apart from the other developments that I mentioned, I don't even know if it's going to be able to help them. Like, you need so much on that team right now. So I can't even imagine what the fucking Dolphins are going to even be able to put out on the field next year. It is certainly tough for them right now. The Cowboys, honestly, intentionally made things tougher for themselves. They would sign their tight end, Jake Ferguson, to a 4-year, $52 million deal, and to be honest, it, in and of itself, is not a bad move. I don't necessarily think that highly of him, but, you know, in his first few seasons in the NFL, he has been a solid tight end. He's gotten over 1,429 receiving yards, 149 receptions, and 7 total touchdowns to this point. You know, it was pretty weird last season, though, for him to not even log a single touchdown reception last year. And again, that's a testament to, you know, Dak Prescott just not really producing all the best when he was healthy, and then also having a lack of chemistry with either Trey Lance or Cooper Rush during the season. Still, he's a one-time Pro Bowler in 2023, which was definitely his best season to date. And while he may not be able to match that from time to time, given that you're going to have George Pickens in this offense now, he can still serve as a truly reliable tight end. I mean, you know, if anything, he is going to be utilized as a safety valve on, I guess, third and short. Just, you know, simple, routine routes from a tight end that'll help the team move the chains. And it'll give the quarterback a safe space, an easy out. Simply put, I mean, in 2023, that same career year for him, he had 40 first down catches. Now that dropped down to 18 in 2024. But if you can get within that range over the course of an entire season, that's about the spot you will want him in. And again, it doesn't make him out to be an elite tight end. He's middle of the pack in a $13 million per year deal, puts him right around that average as a general receiver overall. But the thing that it does is that it's like, damn, like, even if it's for far less money, this just makes Micah Parsons have to wait even longer for a deal that should have already been negotiated and granted at this point. I mean, for all intents and purposes, even if they play different positions, I think we can all say that Micah Parsons is a much better fucking player overall than Jake Ferguson ever will be. And to be Jerry and Stephen Jones at this point and pay this nigga before you pay Micah Parsons, that's a problem. Like, how do you think he's supposed to take that shit? Even if you might eventually overpay for his services, because that's how this typically goes in Dallas, you're going to pay a by far worse player who's around the same age as him at this point. You're going to pay him, and yet I'm clamoring for a deal for all this time. I am very deserving of one, and you can't fork over that money to me already. If $13 million is clearly nothing to you, then why the hell can I get my due? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's probably how he's taking this. You can't blame him. Again, he's going to be, if he makes other public appearances past this point, he's going to be even more frustrated than he already is. And again, even though he's not come out and said that he has wanted to be traded from Dallas, at the same time, man, when you pull off shit like this repeatedly, what's truly stopping him from changing his tune and asking to get the fuck up out of there? What's truly stopping him at that point? Like, if you keep on playing this game, you're going to fuck around and you're going to find out if you're the Dallas front office. So I would not make him wait too much longer. Like, pay him soon. I mean, shit, with what happened in the Chargers organization, think about this. Micah Parsons is the only player in the first round of the 2021 draft class who has made multiple Pro Bowls and has yet to be paid a contract extension. Because Jamar Chase got his, Penei Sewell got his, and Rashawn Slater would also get his earlier in the course of the week, as he would sign a 4-year, $114 million contract extension. When you look at how Slater has been contributing since he's entered the league, honestly, outside of a player like Tristan Wirfs Jr. and Penei Sewell, I think Penei Sewell plays the right end a little more. But let's put it like this. If I labeled in a past video Tristan Wirfs Jr. as the best blindside tackle in the NFL, Rashawn Slater is honestly not that far behind him. I mean, shit, even Trevor Lawrence got paid one of the highest quarterback extensions in history before that market inevitably reset last offseason. He got his due. And Micah Parsons is still dealing with this shit. But anyways, to move on to Rashawn Slater. Like, he seriously deserves a deal. It makes him one of the highest paid left tackles in the league. He's a 2-time Pro Bowler to this point, and he got that last season playing 15 games. He also has a second-team All-Pro appearance in 2021, and also in that same year was a 4th-place finish for Rookie of the Year, Offensive Rookie of the Year voting. He's been mostly durable outside of a 2022 season that saw him miss 14 games due to injury. And, you know, that's always a question when you are dealing with any offensive lineman at this point. You want to make sure that they're as healthy as they can be. But at the same time, when you are producing at the rate that he is, that speaks volumes. I mean, again, he's got one of the higher PFF grades in the league for offensive linemen over the last few years. And when you look at how these penalties are broken down, last season, he was only responsible for 3 overall penalties. Just last season. No false starts in 3 seasons for him at all as well. And you typically see all sorts of different linemen account for these all the time, like Donovan Smith or Jawan Taylor, consistently just being cones on the offensive line front. You don't have that problem with Rashawn Slater at all. And that's huge. Now, has that paid full dividends for the Chargers? Well, no. Because hypothetical man continues to sell hopes and dreams to all the Chargers fans out there. And inevitably, they're going to get sick and tired of this shit. Like, they need to go on a deeper playoff run at some point in time. Because these one-and-done situations where Justin Herbert has these atrociously bad performances, historically bad performances for a quarterback in the postseason, are not going to cut it. And it honestly reflects poorly on a player like Rashawn Slater, who's doing everything he can to protect his ass. Like, this isn't for no reason. It is Justin Herbert literally just succumbing to internalized pressure. Like, Rashawn Slater is consistently, with his sweet feet and pure blocking instincts, just giving you all the time you need in a pocket. And giving you a clean one to work with. And you're not taking that and building off of it into something that will definitely just hype up the fan base and get even more people to truly support what it is you're doing. It's like, come on, man. But yeah, no. All things considered, a $28.5 million deal for Rashawn Slater per year is honestly a good one. I don't think they have any regrets with giving him that whatsoever. But the Browns are a roster full of regrets. I mean, it doesn't help, unrelated, to have Jimmy Haslam go out and say that he was not the person who wanted Shemar Stewart and that it was Andrew's decision, Andrew Berry. You're going to say that out loud? Like, okay, that clearly expresses regret. But anyways, Kenny Pickett would injure his hamstring and is likely going to miss the rest of this season. So now you have a reject in Kenny Pickett getting injured, who, there were going to be questions about whether or not he was going to produce anyways, and now he's not going to get that chance. You have Deshaun Watson, another player who Haslam has come out and said that he regrets getting, but you made the decision in the heat of the moment because you thought you gave him a deal that he couldn't refuse at all, and he goes out and just fucks up the future of your quarterback room completely. So at this point, again, hopefully you wish Kenny Pickett a speedy recovery and full recovery, but they have a just weird balance in that quarterback room right now. You're either going to go with an older Joe Flacco, or you're going to be left with rookies Dylan Gabriel or Shemar Stewart starting off the season for you. It's just a very weird dynamic. I don't know. Like, I don't know if the Hard Knocks for the AFC North is a recurrent thing. I know they did it last season. They might run it back again. And at that point, it's going to be interesting to see how this is discussed. Because I don't know what exactly to say about it. It is fucking crazy, bro. Like, what? What are we talking about right now? Even crazier, the 49ers would have a pair of developments go down because on one end, they would sign Eli Apple to a 1-year deal, and, the Cone himself gets another shot at it in the NFL. Now, I really don't know what he's going to do with that in that specific role, but at the same time, if you're utilizing him as a depth piece, you're probably more than good. But if you rely too much on Eli Apple to be a number 1 or number 2 corner on that team, you're going to screw yourself over. And what's really interesting about the 49ers is this. You obviously had Diamador Lenoir face a situation. I think he's going to be back with the team, right? But you let Charvarius Ward go. You let Talanoa Hufanga go. You let Dre Greenlaw go. And yet you settle, in the midst of all of this, you settle to get back a duo, a dangerous duo of Eli Apple and Jason Pinnock, both former Giants players who can't cover for shit. I just don't know what exactly they're thinking there. And I'll be damned. You place those two on the same formation of a defensive play. If we're calling all of the Dolphins cornerbacks right now cones, just having those two out there alone is going to allow any offense they're facing. And they've got some tough offenses to face, like the Seahawks, not to throw any bias out there. They're going to cook the shit out of both of them. And I'm going to be here for it if they even think that that's a game they should be playing. It's not worth it. The Bills were dealing with a slew of wide receiver injuries. I think I detailed some in the last one. If not, they've just been happening randomly throughout training camp. And in the midst of all of this, they would sign Deon Cain from the XFL. Now, he is a former NFL player, obviously spent time in the XFL to try to re-up his value, and he did well enough with his team. I think, if I'm not mistaken, he played for, I can check to make sure, but yeah, let me see. Well, yeah, UFL. Jesus. Okay. Hold on. He played for the Michigan. The Birmingham Stallions. Okay. Yeah. Just had to make sure on that. He played with them in, actually, as I'm seeing here on this UFL website, he re-signed with them in February. Played out the season. And I guess, again, he did well enough to where he's getting a second look from them. Now, again, I don't know what role he'd have on this team. Definitely a backup for sure. And, if he can execute on the field at a level similar to what he was doing in the UFL over the past few seasons, then, honestly, I have little doubt that he can remain a solid player in the NFL for years to come. But if you're making it back from the UFL, and other people were able to accomplish it, but it's about how you make the most of that opportunity. And we've seen different players throughout the years at this point just fall to the wayside completely because, for one reason or another, they just didn't live up to any sort of expectation whatsoever. All the Bills are asking for Cain to do is just be a solid contributor. That's it. They're not asking him to be the centerpiece of their offense. And I think he should do well in that role. Alright. The Dolphins would get a visit from Noah Fant earlier in the week. he's just been on a tour at this point. He last visited the Saints and then the Bengals also. Both of those teams, honestly, might need some tight end depth, especially the Dolphins. I mean, yes, you're getting Darren Waller, okay, but again, we don't know how the hell he's going to play. We haven't seen him play since the 2023 season, so we don't know what he's going to do. Noah Fant, at least, is, got a bit fresher legs on him, so if you need him in that offense, you can add him in. And honestly, Mike McDaniel, knowing that Noah Fant is a faster tight end, in the same way that he utilized Jonnu Smith last season, he could get some very good usage out of Noah Fant over the course of a year. Again, all of this is right now is a visit. There's not been any confirmation of him signing anywhere at this point, but I don't think that's something that the Dolphins should pass up. Again, you need as much tight end depth as you can get. It's just Darren Waller there. Real stuff. It's just him. You need backups. The Steelers already have a number of reinforcements at the running back position with the rookie Caleb Johnson and obviously Jaylen Warren from last year. So they would release Cordarelle Patterson. He would kind of have a meme about it, tweet out about it himself, and I guess call himself washed up and everything like that. But to be honest, again, he has not had a productive season in years, and he looks as though he has put on some weight. And with the Steelers clearly taking a different direction, as they're trying to continue to cut this roster down throughout the course of the preseason to get ready for a regular season, you gotta be able to make cuts somewhere. And they figured that this was one that might hurt a little bit, but is truly necessary. So, it's definitely tough for Cordarelle Patterson, and unless he elects to get in better shape, I just don't know where the road leads for him after this. Maybe he does eventually just call it a career. Even if he does get in better shape, he's definitely lost a step physically. They call him the Flash, but he's getting up there in age. And at a certain point, he's just not going to be able to last in the league anymore. The Broncos would certainly get a wide receiver with a lot of promise, though, paid big time, as Courtland Sutton would sign a 4-year, $92 million deal to keep his services in Denver. He's been just a great receiver for them. Even if he's only been credited with a single Pro Bowl appearance, the 29-year-old has tallied 5,340 receiving yards over the course of his career, along with 379 receptions and 32 touchdowns. Last season was one of his more successful ones, to say the least. He got his second 1,000-yard season with 81 receptions for 1,081 yards and 8 touchdowns. He's just been a complete and total monster on that front. And his ability to connect with Bo Nix on some of these plays, man, it was truly a sight to see throughout that time. Courtland Sutton might not be considered a top 10 receiver, and honestly, with the way the market is fluctuating on a year-to-year basis in the wide receiver aspect, he's not really being considered to be one. It's right on par with where Terry McLaurin's current deal is at. And both of those guys have been very, very important to their organizations since they've entered the league, both of them. So to be paid like that for your service there is respectable. And Courtland Sutton should certainly take that in stride. He's in the prime of his career right now, and while Bo Nix is still younger, although he's pretty old for the rookie quarterbacks last season, you want to ensure that he's got a solidified weapon to use out there. And Courtland Sutton is certainly the veteran of that wide receiver core right now. You know, obviously Marvin Mims Jr. is young. Troy Franklin is in his second season alongside Bo Nix as well. Davon Vele is a lot older, but also in his second year, weirdly enough. So you gotta have Sutton as a solidified number one wide receiver there to hold things down and make sure that Bo Nix is all good for this upcoming season on that end. The Titans would waive Treylon Burks, which I found to be really interesting, but then they stated that he was dealing with an injury, so it works kind of like them waiving him and getting him off of the initial roster, but then placing him on the injured reserve list with said injury. And it's just an unfortunate situation all around. Just another layer to the after effects of this A.J. Brown trade. You know, you want to see him go out and try to prove himself, but at the same time, the longer he's off the field, more wide receivers on that team are going to steal those opportunities away. So I just, again, hopefully Treylon Burks at least gets a shot at it, because this year was likely going to be a good opportunity to see it happen with a new incompetent quarterback to work with and work alongside. Even Cam Ward a few days back stated that he had faith, I think Cameron Ward stated that he had faith that Treylon Burks was going to put together a really solid year. And if this injury is substantial enough, could take away all of his season, and he doesn't even get a true opportunity to prove himself. And that would truly suck. The Cowboys left tackle, Tyler Guyton, avoided a season-ending injury in his own right. They feared that he had an ACL injury after sustaining what appeared to be that earlier in the week. But it ended up being a very minor version of it, to where he's only going to miss 4 to 6 weeks. That'll still hurt an offensive line unit trying to reestablish themselves and provide good run blocking for a unit that is largely underwhelming at the running back position. But again, we've seen underwhelming running back units in the past be able to put together great years because of how great a team's offensive line was. If the Cowboys wanted to be able to have that happen for them, you want to have all 5 of your main guys healthy. They're going to be one short. So it's going to be interesting to see how that affects the rest of the offensive line and, in turn, the running back room. Some news involving another left tackle is the Colts would sign Bernhard Raimann to a 4-year, $100 million contract extension. He is a player who has recently entered the league in 2022. I believe that he had... Oh, no. Okay, yeah, he's coming out of Central Michigan. And he's also been another player who's put together some solid years. Like, he is another player as a left tackle who has emerged, like Rashawn Slater, although maybe not to the same extent, as a top-end blindside tackle in the league. And again, in a league that can't have enough great blindside protectors out there, because they can truly change the course of a franchise, to lock Raimann up in the prime of his career is a smart move for them. No matter who they decide will be their starting quarterback next season. Like, yes, the Anthony Richardson shit was just historically bad. No, literally, from a completion percentage standpoint, was one of the worst seasons in the modern era of the Super Bowl era for a quarterback by that standpoint of all time. But you can't say that was Raimann's fault. And when it came to keeping the offense in order, he also largely did a great job of that. He also did not have a single false start penalty last season and accounted for just 2 penalties all year. So if you can keep those numbers to a minimum, you're going to be good. His PFF grade was also on the higher end as well. So, hey, at least you got that done, no matter what might have been happening behind the scenes. You can say that for the next 4 years, no matter if there's a continuity under center or not, you at least have one at one of the more important positions on your roster. And in general in the league. Terrion Arnold would suffer a hamstring injury. I don't think they stated that this one is a season ender. And honestly, I would hope not. Let me see. Okay, I guess it's not that major, but again, hopefully he's able to recover from that because, again, the Lions defense in particular, man, again, just give them a fully healthy season. Like, they've got great potential on that front, all across the board. They've already lost Levi Onwuzurike, for this upcoming season. So, man, hopefully he's all good. Nate Herbig would retire from the NFL earlier in the week, and honestly, I do know of Nate Herbig a little bit, but in his career, he wasn't really all that productive for a guard. It looked like he was starting to turn it around with the Steelers, of course. You know, he didn't start a lot of games there, but he did put together a solid season during that time. Still, the Steelers were not mutually interested in his services, and he was a free agent throughout the course of the 2024 offseason. He had not gotten picked up by a team since then. And just like that, he put his career to a close. You know, he is doing this after just 5 NFL seasons. You know, I'm sure that in a much better situation, he'd have a lot more opportunities to contribute well to any offensive line in the league. But at the same time, when you look at all these teams, the Eagles moved on from him after 3 seasons. The Jets moved on from him after 1. And the Steelers just did away with him after 1. All of those teams saw their offensive line at some point take huge steps up and make huge upgrades all over the board. So there really wouldn't have been much room for Herbig. And then with every other team just seeming to pass on him, there might not have been a real space for him out there. Hopefully he goes on to do whatever it is that he would like to do and do it well also in this sport. But football is just not in his future at this point. I guess he's come to terms with that. Or it could be for another totally different reason that we don't know. the Jets would reunite with an interesting character. They would re-sign a 40 going on 41-year-old Nick Folk on a short-term deal. Now, he led the league somehow in field goal percentage in both of his seasons with Tennessee. Somehow. Like, that's pretty fucking crazy. But I don't know how he really helps the Jets. Like, I don't know if I really trust that. Like, yeah, to do that at 40 is impressive, but at some point, he's going to slow down, I would believe. I don't think he's a kind of kicker that can remain in the league until his mid-40s. He's going to start tailing off at some point. And that's the last thing that the Jets need right now. I mean, obviously, you want accuracy in that kicker room. After all, you've been dealing with Greg Zuerlein for the past few years. We know how that's gone. So, you want someone who is as surefire as possible. I get that, but is getting older at that position really the answer? I'm not all too sure about that. Isaiah Likely, the Ravens tight end, is going to miss a few weeks due to an ankle injury / foot injury, as they detailed here. They put together a solid year last year, but and honestly, at the same time, with the mindset of a few Ravens fans out there, maybe they want him to take over from Mark Andrews at some point. But nonetheless, they're going to lose a bit of that versatility at that position, as their other backup in Kolar serves as more of a blocker at this point. So, to have a possession tight end and a blocking tight end trying to go back-to-back in this offense is going to be a little bit of a weird dynamic. But at the very least, you get Isaiah Likely for a good portion of this season still. Some of those games, you may truly need a player of his caliber in the lineup, but at the same time, he's got to take the measures necessary to recover from that injury. So, hey, man, you got to give him that space to do what he's got to do. All right. The Bengals earlier today would release Zack Moss, which makes sense. I thought he was turning it around, but honestly, with what he was doing in the few games he played in last season, being a subpar rusher of the football, and with the Bengals trying to bolster every position on that offense they possibly can, while focusing little on the defensive front, Zack Moss wasn't going to last on that team, to just keep it a stack. He wasn't going to. For the Browns, one of their corners, and Emerson Jr, could miss the season with a torn Achilles tendon, and this language has been changing over the course of the hours following this development. He very much will, as some reports will put it, and that is unfortunate. Again, I've been on record saying a number of different things about Emerson Jr. over the years, and honestly, some of those still ring true, but, in that organization, he is definitely considered as one of their top cornerbacks, especially in the slot position, and sometimes as a number 2. Denzel Ward and Greg Newsome II are still great enough to be able to hold down the fort while he's resting and recovering from this. But that is still a huge loss on that front. So it's going to be very interesting to see how the Browns are able to fill that third cornerback position. And, hopefully he can make a full recovery from it and get the proper treatment he would need. The Seahawks earlier today would mention that they are going to extend John Schneider. Now, I don't know the language of the contract, but it's a damn good deal. I don't care what it is, what amount of money it is. He's the optimal GM to extend in that organization. He's done nothing but deliver year after year since he's been there. They have been a consistent winning organization, which is better than what some other teams in the NFL over that same time span can say for themselves. And with the damage that he's done in some of the last few drafts, getting Jackson Smith and Jigba, getting Kenneth Walker III, drafting Tariq Woolen late, getting Devin Witherspoon in the first round, move after move after move is paying off for this team right now. They haven't been able to put it all together throughout a full season, but it's coming. And John Schneider will ensure that he's there for at least a few more seasons to potentially see this through. And now to just cap this shit off, we started off on a lighter tone. Well, not even remotely light. What am I talking about? Started off with, a lot of serious news regarding what happened on Monday in Manhattan, regarding Josh Hines-Allen and his family, and regarding Deion Sanders and his situation. But now we have to end this shit off talking once again about one of his former teams, because I just get a piece of news from Fox Sports literally just a few minutes back stating that Brian Schottenheimer is not happy with something that happened in practice. I don't know what the fuck it is. And he was quoted as saying, apparently, "You want to fucking fight? Let's fucking fight." What the fuck are you talking about, Brian Schottenheimer? What the fuck do you mean? Tough Brian Schottenheimer? Seriously? Like, what is possibly happening in that practice right now to get him to that point? I can only speculate. I have absolutely no idea. Like, this is just coming in hot right through my phone, and it just continues to add to the circus that is fucking Dallas. Like, nobody knows what the fuck is going on down there, man. It just got everything under the sun happening over there. It's always something, and it has nothing to do with getting their asses ready for Super Bowl contention. Nothing whatsoever. Any number of things you can think about, they're doing. And that is not always a good thing. Like, even if they are more focused, especially Jerry Jones, on the entertainment side of the business rather than actually winning football games, even if we're looking at it from that standpoint, does his ass not recognize that all press is not good press? Like, even if the money is reining in, even if they are increasing their value as an organization every single year, it's not good press. It's not good press. When you're Jerry Jones last week talking about niggas getting hit by cars in relation to Micah Parsons' contract, and then saying that in the same breath that Parsons had to wait, Lamb had to wait, and it paid off for him, why are you mentioning CeeDee Lamb? What the hell are you mentioning CeeDee Lamb for? This isn't about him. He's already gotten paid. And talking about, the crowd wasn't chanting pay Micah as loud as they were chanting pay CeeDee last year. Like, what the fuck do you mean? There's no difference. There's no difference. You have a highly sought-after player, if he were to become a free agent, and a generational talent in Micah Parsons per se. CeeDee Lamb's obviously a great wide receiver, but I don't think he got the generational label, even though he's trailing right behind Justin Jefferson in most receiving categories for the first 5 years of a player of that position's career. Why are you mentioning that at all? Then you got Stephen Jones saying what the hell he said, and now you have this soundbite that is going to get run into the ground from Brian Schottenheimer. the new head coach of a team. Although, if I do see the full context and get my hands on that, it's probably going to sound pretty hilarious. That's actually a fucking problem. Like, we aren't even a few days into training camp. This is your first experience of that in the head coach position. And you have to do that to get your players to listen to whatever the hell it is you're talking about at that moment. That's not a good thing. And whenever I can see the full exchange, that's going to say a whole hell of a lot about the situation. Because either the players were just getting raucous and you as a head coach are simply just trying to do whatever it is that you can to tone things down. Whatever Schottenheimer was trying before wasn't working and he resorted to that. Or he said that a potential response was given to him as the full exchange might show, and there's a chance that players might have shut down whatever he was saying. And at that point, you don't command respect from the locker room as a head coach. Which again, it's not even his first full year there, and he's already dealing with that shit. There will be growing pains, but that is not a good sign of progress at all. But of course, what do you expect from the disaster class that is the Cowboys organization over the past 30 years? And you have the nerve to have multiple players in the organization come out and say that they're Super Bowl ready. George Pickens saying that Dallas is more known for Super Bowls earlier in the week. Tyler Smith coming out and saying, why not us? Why can't the Cowboys go out and win a Super Bowl this season? Because this is fucking why. This is why right here. Every time, it's something with this fucking team. Like, y'all just gotta stop talking, bro. Stop talking. Because it makes stuff like this just laughable. Whenever something like this happens, like, how are we supposed to take that seriously if within just a few days of one of those quotes, you have things devolving into a damn near team-wide fight involving personnel of the coaching staff? Like, come on, man. But that'll do it for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.